and Accreditation Policy 2.1 related to the requirement for reporting accurate data to the MDE. So on August the 16th of 2016, the Commission unanimously approved the downgrade of the district status to probation and directed the MDE at that time to conduct the audit. Once the district was downgraded, they were required to submit a corrective action plan within 60 days. If you recall, they submitted the corrective action plan, and when the Office of Accreditation brought that before the board in November of 2016, we recommended that the board not approve the plan because it didn't adequately address the issues of non-compliant that were on the district's record. We allowed the district an additional month to revise the plan and brought the plan back to the state board in December, and it was approved. Throughout this entire 18 months, we're going to walk through an 18-month timeline from the beginning of the legislative audit in April of 2016 to current. We consistently messaged to the district the consequences for failure to implement the corrective actions and to clear the deficiencies on record, and that if the deficiencies were not resolved, the district could be subject to having its accreditation withdrawn or be in the position that we are today, where we are having to determine if an extreme emergency does exist. Again, in August of 2016, we expressed significant concerns to the district, mainly regarding the deficiencies that were related to instructional practices, graduation requirements, and a safe and orderly school climate. On numerous instances, we pointed out to the district the urgency of addressing those. However, we do not feel that at any point the district demonstrated the sense of urgency needed to resolve the critical issues that we had put before them. We encouraged the district to prioritize their task and to focus on clearing the deficiencies that were related to these areas of concern, rather than trying to clear process standards in the sample that were non-related to the rationale for the downgrade for the state of an emergency. Prior to the completion of the audit, all of the findings on the district records were for the sample of the 22 schools, and so throughout this process, when we explained to the district, we told the district that they should apply the corrective actions to all schools within the district, not just the schools in the sample. And although the district cleared some of the deficiencies noted in the sample during the full investigative audit, auditors reported similarities in the findings for the remaining schools that were not part of the sample. During this time, the MDE was also charged with providing technical assistance and assisting the district with the implementation of implementing their corrective action plan, while at the same time conducting this full investigative audit in all 52 schools, or 58 schools that receive performance classifications. So when I refer to technical assistance, we provided the district with information and instructions on how to work toward correcting their deficiencies. We provided the district with a technical assistance request form, and we have documented every technical assistance request that has been made by the district. The only professional development or technical assistance request that we have denied is when the district asked for the same assistance multiple times due to the changeover in staffing. We also informed the district that we would not provide professional development in areas that were being provided statewide because they could participate in the statewide opportunities. We did note that the district did fail in some instances to utilize the opportunity to receive the statewide professional development. In February of 2017, we had to have some conversations with the district leadership regarding their request for follow-up visits, because in addition to the technical assistance and implementation of the CAP and investigating the audit, we also were charged with conducting follow-up visits. So in many cases, the district had asked us to come back and conduct follow-up visits that they were not prepared for. So when we got there to conduct the follow-up visit, they did not demonstrate compliance. And so in February of 2017, we asked the district to ensure that if they called us back for a follow-up visit, that they were prepared for the follow-up visit and that they knew that they had cleared the deficiencies related to that particular standard. So at that time, it was agreed upon that the agency would not respond to any request for follow-up visits unless we received the request from the superintendent or the interim superintendent or his designee, because we were getting requests in multiple program offices from multiple offices within the district, and so we needed to streamline that process. On August the 31st, 2017, we provided the district with the on-site investigative audit report. So this report is being made to the commission, to the state board today, as well as to the commission yesterday, in accordance with Mississippi Code 3717.612B, based on the findings outlined in that report. So the code section is projected on the screen. The state board must determine if an extreme emergency exists in the district that jeopardizes the safety, security, and educational interest of the children enrolled in the district, and again, determine whether or not that emergency situation is believed to be related to serious violations of accreditation standards, state and federal law, the failure to sustain a safe school climate, the inappropriate standards of governance, as well as a pattern of poor academic performance. The on-site investigative audit report that you received indicates that the district is out of compliance with accreditation policy 2.1 and 24 of the 32 process standards, as well as multiple state and federal laws. Please note that there is a significant overlap between the findings that were reported in the April 2016 report and the current investigative audit report. Specifically, the district is still non-compliant with accreditation policy 2.1, and they are still non-compliant with 18 of the same process standards that they were non-compliant with in the original report. So, as previously mentioned, the district was allowed 30 days to respond to the findings of the legislative audit report before those findings were placed on the district's accreditation record summary. In October of 2014, the board approved the accreditation audit procedures, and those procedures do not require that the district be allowed 30 days to respond to this audit report, since the recommendation is to determine whether or not, or the charge before you is to determine whether or not an extreme emergency exists in the district. So therefore, the district has been made aware of the concerns as early as April of 2016, and they've had nearly 18 months to address and correct the issues that are outlined in the report. Therefore, I'm before you today saying that the district has had notice and they've had opportunity. So I want to clarify that in this audit, we went back and reviewed the same standards that were reviewed in the preliminary audit report. So the red font that is in your audit report that you received it indicates the findings that were noted in April of 2016 and were still noted again in the investigative audit report. Now, there were a couple of areas, particularly like the facilities, where we did not go back and audit those same schools in the sample because the district already had a very specific list of findings. So those appeared in red, and anything that had been cleared was a strike through. Please refer to accreditation policy 2.5 of the Mississippi Public School Accountability Standards that's projected on the screen. These are the areas which are that are considered to be the most serious of violation standards. And the next slide, I just want to point out that the district is in violation of 7 of those: reporting false information, operating day-to-day based on board policies, appropriate standards of governance, graduation requirements, test security procedures, federal programs specifically dealing with ESEA and IDEA, and the standards that deal with safe and orderly schools. Based on the most recent report from the Office of the State Auditor, the district has a letter of warning in the 8th area that's listed on the screen, which is related to financial accountability requirements or fixed assets of accountability. The district has also failed to implement a coherent, cohesive, high-quality instructional management system that clearly defines the academic goals necessary for improving student achievement, as evidenced by a pattern of poor academic performance. The Commission on School Accreditation met in a special call meeting on Wednesday, September the 13th, and determined that these serious violations do jeopardize the safety, security, and educational interests of the children enrolled in the district. Each of the 24 non-compliant standards have an impact on the educational interests of the students in the district. However, this presentation will focus only on those violations believed to have the greatest impact on student achievement and the safety, security, and educational interest of the student in the district. I want to emphasize that the 7 areas previously highlighted or overview on the screen do have the greatest impact on the children that are enrolled in the district. I'm not going to spend time talking about things that are administrative or procedural. And when we talk about some of the process standards throughout, I'm sure you noticed in your report that the district may have implemented a portion of the corrective action plan. An example would be they amended a board policy to comply with a local board policy to comply with a state board policy or a state statute. However, in many instances, they failed to implement that. So throughout some of the findings, you'll see that. We'll begin with the instructional management system. As the educational leader of the district, the interim superintendent failed to ensure the implementation of an instructional management plan that clearly defines the academic goals necessary for improving student achievement in the district. This is a direct violation of state law, which states that the superintendent, principals, and teachers are required to enforce the course of study that's prescribed by the State Board of Education. The district provided a board policy regarding instructional management system, but they failed to produce the board minutes indicating that the instructional management system had been approved. The classroom level or the Tier 1 instruction in all non-compliant schools failed to provide sufficient opportunities for students to be identified for Tier 2 or Tier 3 instructional supports. Lack of identification and intervention at the school level causes students to fail to meet the Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standard. The following includes, but is not limited to, some of the concerns that were noted during the classroom observations. Teachers failed to actively engage students in learning, utilize instructional time effectively, maintain control and discipline in the classrooms, use questioning and discussion techniques to promote higher order thinking, differentiate instruction appropriately for students, demonstrate a deep knowledge of the content area, provide a productive learning environment. Teacher lesson plans fail to reflect the content or the instruction that was observed. They failed to include the activities, assignment, and assessments under the curriculum frameworks and substrands. Failed to include any tiered interventions. In some instances, teachers failed to provide lesson plans at all. Some of the lesson plans provided were for the wrong content area. Students were also observed in the hallways during instructional time. They arrived late to class, and they were on cell phones and iPads during instructional time. Earlier this month, we received a report from a parent that sat in her child's class at one of the high schools and reported back to the Office of Accreditation that her observations while at the school mirrored the findings of the report. In the areas of early childhood and the kindergarten program, schools failed to document assistant teacher education qualifications, to document professional development provided to assistant teachers, and administrators. They failed to conduct hearing and vision screenings on all kindergarten children within the first days of enrollment. They failed to plan evaluations of children's progress using the MDE standards for social and emotional development. They failed to provide parents with the 16-17 student handbook. They failed to schedule the number of parent-teacher conferences that were required, and they failed to provide the appropriate amount of required amount of instructional time. The lesson plans in pre-kindergarten and kindergarten consistently failed and adequately failed to address the current instructional standards that are required by the MDE. The overall collection of each library failed to represent a well-balanced, broad range of current learning media, including books in print, up-to-date instructional technology, periodicals, teacher resources, and equipment. Despite the district's attempt to implement the corrective action plan in all 7 of the high schools, the schools still failed to ensure that all graduating seniors of the 16-17 school year met minimum requirements for graduation. The MDE reviewed records for 1,404 graduating seniors during the school year 16-17 in all of the 7 high schools in the district. Each of the 7 high schools lacked the documentation to verify that all graduating seniors had earned the number of Carnegie units and or met or passed all of the 4 end-of-course subject area exams as required, or either met one of the options in lieu of passing the test. The MDE reviewed all senior records that were provided by the district at the time. So when we entered the district, we asked the school to provide us with all of the cumulative folders and permanent records of the students that were seniors. And we reviewed those, and you have the detailed findings by school in each of your reports that were provided to you. However, the district allowed 86 students who did not meet the minimum number of graduation requirements to graduate related to the Carnegie units, and 63 students that did not pass the end of course subject area test or meet one of the options in lieu of. Schools also substituted courses that were not allowable in lieu of the required courses for graduation. One school failed to follow the appropriate substitutions for the International Baccalaureate program. In addition, the Office of Accreditation received numerous complaints from parents that were approaching time for the graduation. This was within a week or 2 weeks of graduation. The complaints indicated that the district had failed to provide them adequate notice that their student had not met one of the graduation requirements and would not be able to participate in graduation exercises, or that they had had a test score invalidated, or just that they wouldn't be able to participate. In December, the board adopted a policy that addresses the changing of students' grades. However, as the end of the 16-17 school year came to a close, the Office of Accreditation received reports from teachers in the district stating that they were being pressured by administrators to change grades in order to pass students. These teachers claimed that they were being threatened with letters of reprimand if they failed to comply. One of the teachers claimed that the building level administrator told teachers that the school had a maximum number of students per team and grade that they were allowed to fail, and any failures beyond that would be overwritten. Additional concerns at the 7 high schools that caused us to question the fidelity and the integrity of the implementation of the grading policies include, but are not limited to, a student may have failed a course the first semester, but they didn't repeat the course the second semester. They received credit recovery during their senior year for a course that they actually failed during the 9th or 10th grade. In some cases, students received credit for the same course twice. Opt-out forms were signed up to within 2 weeks of graduation. Students enrolled in and received credit for courses that the MDE no longer approved. Students that had rigorous schedules missed excessive number of days, but yet were able to pass all the courses. For example, one of the records that I reviewed, the student had taken English 2, 3, and 4, Algebra 2, Geometry, Physical Science, U.S. Government, Economics, and one elective during their senior year. This particular student had a composite score of 12 on the ACT, and it was documented that they had missed 39 days of school. One student failed chemistry in the 10th grade, was allowed to come back and take credit recovery their senior year, was awarded a grade of 79 in credit recovery. However, we have a state board policy that says no grade higher than a 70 can be issued in credit recovery. The principal signed and dated a permanent record of a student that did not participate in graduation exercises. When we look at student records, cumulative records, permanent folders along that same topic, for content that's required in to be maintained, collected, maintained, and disseminated. It's mandated by law in accordance with the Mississippi Cumulative Folders and Permanent Records Manual. We also looked at residency and immunization requirements. So we reviewed records in all 58 schools. If you go back to the maintenance of records for what's in the manual, 41 of those schools were non-compliant. Some of the findings that were of concern indicated that records lacked the required course grade information, so a grade was failed to be recorded on the cumulative folder or permanent record. Attendance data was not recorded, with enrollment and withdrawal data was not recorded, standardized test data, and there were different grades that were recorded in some instances on the cumulative folder and the permanent record. 35 of the 58 schools in the district failed to provide the required immunization documentation. Residency, 35 schools failed to provide residency, 23 on immunization. We also received an inquiry from a physician at the University Medical Center related to the increased number of requests that they were getting from parents in the school for immunization forms. So one of the nurses at UMC contacted one of the high schools, and the staff at the high school told the UMC nurse that the MDE had seized student records during the audit. So I just want to inform the board that we did not seize any student records while on site at any of the schools. So during the exit conference, I questioned the superintendent about this, and he indicated that they were just requiring that all parents provide new forms during the registration process for all students, because that was the easiest way to get the immunization records complete and up to date. Based on the MSIS personnel data report for school year 16-17, the district reported 5,202 employees. 1,972 of those employees were coded as certified teachers. 299, or 15% of those 1,972 certified teachers employed in the district in 16-17 did not hold a valid Mississippi teacher license, or they lacked the proper license or endorsement for the subject that they were teaching. So this is in addition to the 190 vacancies that the district reported for school year 16-17. The district failed to comply with test security requirements outlined in Appendix F. The district test security plan did not contain all required components. The district test security plan also lacked individual school test security plans. During the spring assessment window, the MDE conducted on-site visits in 3 of the schools. In one of the schools, the school failed to provide a school test security plan. The principal purposely tried to prevent MDE from viewing all the testing rooms by telling auditors that testing was only occurring in the computer lab. There was a case where secure testing tickets that contained online access for individual students to their online test were left unattended. An employee walked down the hall unattended with an ELA testing booklet. Secure test materials were left unattended in the distribution room. Test administrator had an electronic device in the testing environment that repeatedly sounded. The school failed to provide students with the appropriate amount of time during statewide testing. In some cases, the students were not provided enough time, and in others, they were provided more time than what was allowed. At another school, during testing, there were 2 testing rooms that did not have 2 adults present as required for at least 24 minutes. For 2 minutes where testing occurred in the library, there was no adult in the room. Students were allowed to talk to each other during statewide testing. Again, at this school, they failed to provide the students with the appropriate amount of time to take the test. The hall monitor also had an electronic device in the testing area. At the 3rd school, a proctor provided answers to a student during the test. A student was talking on a cell phone during statewide testing. Again, failed to provide students with the appropriate amount of time to take the test. Test administrator and proctors were talking amongst themselves during statewide testing. There were multiple the school test coordinator, assistant school test coordinator, multiple test administrators and proctors that had electronic devices in the testing area. Secure test materials were also left unattended at this school, and the students were not provided the appropriate accommodations during statewide testing. One school also made a self-report to MDE that they had a missing ELA writing test booklet. The data forensic results for the district indicated that 6 out of 7 of the high schools had students who received invalidated test scores in the 4 subject areas for extreme similarity and or wrong to right answers that exceeded the threshold. Child Find is a federally funded mandated process for identifying, locating, and evaluating children who have a disability. It was established that the district did not have an effective Child Find process, which resulted in delaying services to students in need, and in some cases eliminated services for students in need. Both federal and state law require that the district provide students ages 3 to 20 who reside in Mississippi with a free and appropriate public education through the development of an individualized educational program. The IEP is developed by an appropriate committee and should also include the parent. The district failed to ensure that the development of the IEPs for each student with disabilities receive specifically designed instruction to meet the student's need. Such the IEPs fail to address areas such as student strengths, concerns of the parent, results of most recent evaluations, academic development and functional needs of the students, descriptions of how the students progress toward meeting annual goals, and the frequency and duration of services and support. So students ages 14 and older, IEPs didn't include appropriate post-secondary goals. District failed to ensure students with disabilities had an IEP in place that denied students access to the services that met their needs. Reevaluations were not conducted in the 3-year time frame. Extended school year documentation, such as eligibility determination and the eligibility criteria, was not documented to support that decision on the student's IEP. The Office of Special Education looked at 51 areas, and 42 of the 51 areas that they reviewed had issues of noncompliance. They reviewed 487 records in the district, and in those 487 records had 1,956 individual citations, so that's an average of 4 violations on each IEP. The district failed to provide evidence that budgets and expenditures for all federal programs under ESEA were allocable, reasonable, and necessary, met program intent and purposes, aligned with the approved application and amendments on file at MDE, and were obligated and liquidated in accordance with the approved plan. The district failed to provide evidence that contracts and agreements were made in accordance with applicable federal and state law and local requirements. So in June of 2017, the MDE Office of Federal Programs directed the district to refund question cost in the amount of $535,417, and the district did refund those costs in July of 2017. As of August the 31st of 2017, the district had a total of over $1.8 million in FY16 funds that had not yet been expended. Although no federal physical requirement have been violated to date pertaining to these funds, I just want to note that if the district fails to obligate these funds by September the 30th of 17 and liquidate by December the 30th of 17, that nearly $2 million of funds will be reverted back to the USDOE. School safety, the crisis management plans didn't comply with MDE requirements, and there was a lengthy review of the school safety concerns in the report that indicated that MDE is not the only agency that has been concerned with the safety violations in the school district. Transportation, we continue to receive complaints from parents that buses are not picking up the students and on time in the mornings, and that they're not getting to school by the start of the instructional day. We still need to have an initial inspection of 25 buses in the district, but despite the numerous requests, we were to evaluate those buses, they were not provided. The district has also failed to provide facilities that in a safe and secure environment. Throughout the investigative audit report, we provided the facility reports to the district, but only 3 of the schools have cleared since December of 2016. We went back in June of 2017 and conducted a follow-up visit in 11 schools based on the district request, but only 1 school cleared. Just briefly to highlight some of the governance issues, state law requires that the management responsibilities of the district superintendent are required by state and federal law, but the superintendent has failed to provide effective educational leadership in those areas. We did, as mentioned earlier, discovered that many of the findings from the investigative audit report are consistent with the findings from the legislative report, and the overlap was within 18 process standards in which the district had 18 months. Board policies failed to serve as the basis of operation in the district, and board members have failed to effectively perform its duties in accordance with applicable law. As you all are aware, prior to the completion of the investigative audit, JPS had a number of board members to resign, resulted in a 3-member board, and they could not conduct business because they did not have a quorum. As of today, the mayor and city council have appointed 1 additional member to the board. Accreditation policy 2.1, we've highlighted that a number of times with reporting data. I just want to emphasize that all the data that is in INSIS is reported by the district, and it's the district's responsibility to ensure that that data is true and accurate, and that they have the documentation on file to verify that. Finally, we'll talk about the pattern of poor academic performance. The on-site investigative report that you received included a 5-year history of performance for the district, and that's summarized on the screen. For 4 years, 2012 through 2015, the district had a performance classification of a D. In 2016, the district's official grade dropped to an F. 4 out of 7 of its high schools is in the lowest performing 10% of high schools in the state. Over the past 5 years, the graduation rate in the district has remained below 68%, while the state graduation rate has increased to 82.3%. In 2017, 6 of the 7 high schools dropped more than 10% in math proficiency. 17 of the district's elementary schools performed in the lowest 10% of elementary schools in the state, 2 of those being the lowest 2 performing elementary schools statewide. The district also has the lowest performing schools in math and reading proficiency statewide. The district is in the lowest 25% of districts in reading and math proficiency, and the lowest 10% in U.S. history and science proficiency. The board has requested and been provided the 2017 preliminary accountability results that were provided to the school district and to the Commission on School Accreditation. I just want to emphasize that despite some of the concerns that have been raised, the preliminary data is not embargoed. We do not have a board policy that says the data is embargoed. When the data was released to the school district, it was only the numerical value. We did not have the cuts. However, if you look at the 2016 baseline cuts that are established and that we are aware of, that the district can determine, the district can determine that they will receive, based on the preliminary data, an F for 2 consecutive years, and that they will have more than 50% of their schools rated an F. And that's based on the 2016 baseline that we already have the cut points for. Again, the baseline for 2017 was not provided because we have to have the final results before those can be determined. In addition to the pattern of poor academic performance, the district consistently fails to fails to meet deadlines in accountability data reviews. In the review of accountability data for the 2016 accountability year, the district failed to meet deadlines for senior snapshot verification, full academic year, and demographic review, as well as the review of their preliminary accountability results for 2016. The district in 2016 did not respond to the review of their graduation rate data. In the review of accountability data for 2017, which is this current year, the district has failed to meet the deadlines for full academic year and demographic review. They did not respond to the review of the senior snapshot data. During the review of the graduation data, the district posted some files in advance of the deadline, but other files were posted after the deadline. In addition, districts had from July the 19th through August the 14th of 2017 to update the ACT scores for use in the college and career readiness component in the statewide accountability system. The district contacted the MDE on August the 15th, the day following the deadline, stating that they did not complete this process for the updates and indicated that they needed an extension for this request. And as you know, the preliminary results are currently under review for 2017, and the appeals are due to the MDE by all districts by September the 28th. However, if the deadlines have already been missed by JPS or any other district that have already been provided and missed, they will not be included in the review. So in summary, I'll just point you back to the 8 areas on the slide, Dr. Malone, if you'll go back, that are the most egregious, and just emphasize that the district is in or is non-compliant in 8 of the 7 areas that are outlined in policy 2.5.2 that would allow the district's withdrawal of accreditation. And we believe that these are the areas that are published in our policy that have the greatest impact on student achievement. And in addition to these 7 areas, the district, again, I want to emphasize that they have failed to implement a coherent, cohesive, high-quality instructional management system.
Accreditation's time has lapsed. And now the board will hear from representatives from the Jackson Public School District. Have 40 minutes as well, and I will give you a 5-minute warning.
Hey, you want to stand up?
Actually, but no one can leave out, though.
Okay, we can't leave the room.
Need to have both arguments together?
Back to back.
Back to back.
proceed just as soon as we get the other board member back in here. We're missing one board member.
Okay, you may proceed.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank the commission for giving us an opportunity to present today. We'd also like to note that we did not receive the 30 school days to respond to the findings as outlined in your procedures. We only had 7 days to prepare, and we requested additional time. We just wanted to make that note prior to moving forward into our presentation. First of all, we'd just like to start by outlining our mission. The Jackson Public Schools, an innovative urban district committed to excellence, will provide every student a quality education in partnership with parents and the community. Recently, we revised our goals to adequately address what we felt were major issues within our system and also to align with our goals of the CAP. So our goals are we want to increase academic performance and achievement first and foremost. We want to provide a safe school climate and, of course, maintain fiscal integrity and accountability. And ultimately, our vision is to become a top-ranked learning community that graduates productive, caring citizens who are prepared to succeed in a global society. We think it's extremely important for us to bring to bring forth our district profile. We'll reference some things, and we really want this commission, this board, to understand the volume of our district. We're the second largest school district in Mississippi, serving nearly 27,000 students, representing more than 80% of the school-age children in the state's capital, and the only urban municipality. Our district maintains approximately 5 million square feet of floor space, approximately 2,200 acres, 108 buildings, and 247 portables. We have 7 high schools, 12 middle schools, 37 elementary schools, and 2 special schools comprising the district's 58 school sites. These schools are divided into 7 feeder patterns based on the high schools that receive those area students. We have a myriad of choice within our district. We believe that we are first class as it relates to the amount of choice that exists. We have programs ranging from APAC, which is advanced placement. We have arts programs, Ask for More, Base Pair, academic research programs, career academies, just to name a few of those programs. And not just in those special schools, but we also have these programs district-wide in many cases. We believe that much of what we just heard, we believe that much of that was 12 to 6 months ago, and we are a much different district now than we were at that time. And so why are we a different district? Because we've made some tough decisions and made some changes that we felt need to be made to improve our district and to move it forward. We reorganized our district into 4 pre-K-12 districts. In the past, I think since probably the inception of our district, we've always been by division. We've been aligned not vertically, but horizontally as it relates to how we operated. But we've now divided our district into 4 subzones. We've hired 14 new principals just this year. Principals in probably 24% of our schools are new. We've consolidated schools, something that's not been done, was not popular, but a decision that we had to make at a savings of over $1 million. So we are making those, we've made those tough decisions. We repurposed a middle school and turned it into a re-engagement center to address those issues with our students who are overage and undercredited. We created a compliance department. We had compliance, we had people doing compliance in the past, but there was no kind of method or strategic approach to that. We've created now a compliance department that monitors the execution of the corrective actions and that monitors all of our standards on a daily basis. This is a graphic of the district breakdown. Again, this was board approved. We worked with Mississippi School Board Association. We did extensive research in looking at how we could better support our students. And so our district now is divided into 4 areas, area 1, 2, 3, and 4. In our area, you can see that the size of the area ranges from about 4,000 students to almost 9,000. We felt, or we know, we've seen already, that this is significantly a better approach to dealing with our district because of the size. And we didn't just make these decisions in isolation. We looked at the data. The Forest Hill feeder pattern had the most challenges. So it was we have 7, so 1 had to stand alone, and we decided to utilize Forest Hill because of what the data said about that feeder pattern. We are designing, we're making decisions, funding, based on the needs of those specific feeder patterns of those specific areas, and those area superintendents have the autonomy and the flexibility to do things differently as they see fit according to the needs of their specific feeder pattern. We think that's a major change in our district that will help us as we move forward. The timeline here is extremely important, and we want to spend just a little time talking about the timeline. MDE has gone through the timeline, and we started in April of 2006 with this process, almost 18 months ago. A limited audit was conducted, 20 schools were audited, and 22 of the 32 standards were found to be, we were found to be in violation. This was conducted over a 3-week time frame. And we want to note here that this audit took about 11 months. This investigative audit took a period of 11 months. And MDE, of course, downgraded the district accreditation status to probation. The district began to develop a corrective action plan to address those deficiencies. And in this meeting, I can recall sitting in this room on one of the chairs in the back, and there was discussion among the committee about how difficult it would be for a district to go through a corrective action plan and simultaneously go through an investigative audit. That it would be tough. And we found that to be, you all had the foresight then, some of you all in that discussion, and we found that to be the case. It was a tough process to go through simultaneously. But on September the 6th, MDE began a full investigative audit in September. The MDE rejected the district's corrective action plan. On November 16th, the former superintendent resigned, and the board named me interim superintendent on November 17th. We immediately began to work with MDE collaboratively, and we were able to get a corrective action plan approved on December 15th. On December 16th, we hit the ground running, moving forward with that corrective plan. Simultaneously, some of this that you see in the binder was already noted and was in place. Some of these findings had already been provided for the report even before this administrative team became part of this process. July 31st, the MDE ended its full investigative audit. The next slide, we just have provided a graphic representation of the timeline just to show you the overlap and how difficult it is to simultaneously have a corrective action plan. We're working on correcting actions, and at the same time, people are in the building. You know, we talked about what it equated to. I saw an article in the Clarion Ledger, and they talked about what it kind of looked like. It was basically we were trying to build a house, and at the same time we were building the house is being, the final inspections are taking place in many cases. So again, this is just a graphic representation of the overlap that was taking place, the CAP investigative audit going on at the same time. We have for you, and I apologize that you just received these, but again, we only had 7 days to prepare this presentation, but we provided with you 2 volumes of information. Within these volumes, you will see that we have addressed every single standard. We're not just sitting around, and we've not been. We've been working. We either have a process, a procedure, or we've taken an action on all of the standards that are outlined. So we are making strides in every area. Are we where we need to be at this point? We think we've made significant progress since the cap was approved in December. So these exhibits, we'll reference them throughout the presentation, but because of the short amount of time we have to present, we won't be able to go through all the standards all of the information that you've heard. So we want to make sure that you know that it's not just the standards that we'll cover, but we've addressed everything, and we'll be available to answer any questions relative to those other areas. But again, we want to go back to, we believe that the Jackson Public Schools today is vastly different than it was 12 months ago, even 8 months ago, especially 18 months ago. The Jackson Public Schools will demonstrate that an extreme emergency does not exist at this time that jeopardizes the safety, security, and educational interests of students. The Jackson Public School District will demonstrate that we have made significant improvements in the areas of safety, security, transportation, instruction, record keeping, facilities, teacher recruitment since the completion of the limited and investigative audits performed by the MDE. And we'll start again with those standards that have been highlighted, as those that are that would cause or would be reason for a takeover. We've addressed standard 1. 100% of our board policies has been reviewed by the school board. A total of 457 of those policies have been reviewed, revised, and developed or deleted. And not only have we revised those policies, but we've put those policies into action. We've started to work on those areas where we had deficiencies. We created a new policy, Policy Procedure IDB, on accreditation. It establishes processes and consequences for accreditation deficiencies. When we came into this seat, we realized that we needed to have a sense of urgency. State Superintendent talked to us about that, and we took the charge. We put forth a sense of urgency, and we needed to put some processes in place to ensure that our people understood the sense of urgency. And I go back to the second slide where we talked about the number of people that are in the organization, the size of the organization. 2 or 3 schools, 5 schools, you can create that, you can scale things in a week or 2 weeks. When you're talking about 5,000, it's a little different. And so again, we hold people, my hallmark is people have to be accountable. And if they're not, then we have to make those changes that are necessary to get the right people in the space. But this policy goes a long way in doing that. Accreditation Policy IDB and procedures for addressing non-compliance and accountability. The district has developed and implemented an internal monitoring and reporting process to ensure compliance with accountability requirements of accreditation standards that include consequences for personnel. So we have this compliance department. We have standard leaders for all 32 of the standards. Principals and department heads, CAP facilitators, and superintendent are notified in writing if there is a deficiency. The principal or department heads would have, if there is a deficiency noted, the principal or department head would have 5 to 8 days to correct those deficiencies. If those deficiencies are not corrected, then disciplinary actions are taken. Might be a reprimand, suspension, or termination. And the internal compliance team, they're our boots on the ground to support this work. So they're in schools every day looking at the standards. When there are issues with the standards, they bring that information back, and we have this policy to motivate those individuals to do what needs to be done. Another area, records, standards 6 and 8. There were extensive comments about residency verification, student records. The Office of Records completed a review and assessment of all 2015-16 graduate records that are currently archived at the Central Depository. All 2017 graduate records were reviewed and verified, and the district is presently following the instructions and procedures for record maintenance as prescribed by MDE's Manual for Direction for Records. The district is presently utilizing an internal auditing process for reviewing and evaluating records. The district has an online record checklist inventory system that is used for auditing purposes. and the district has implemented a process for schools outside of the district to request records. Personnel responsible for student records are trained using the MDE Manual of Instructional Online Tutorials. All students have required proofs of residency, birth certificate, immunization certificate on file with internal audits will continue to take place to ensure compliance. I'd also like to note that the Jackson Public School District did not communicate to anyone that records had been seized by MDE. That did not come from our department. And we required parents to bring the residency because we wanted to get it right. This issue was a problem, and it was identified. And so in order for us to ensure that this was properly handled and that we did what was required, we requested those records. Not because it was the easiest thing to do, but it was necessary in order to get it right. The parents that have not completed registration have been notified, and the issues will be resolved according to the district's procedure. Students that have not reported to school or withdrawn have been reported to the MDE Office of Compulsory Enforcement. We've reviewed board standard 14 graduation requirements. You've heard a lot about that. You've seen a lot as it relates to graduation requirements and students being not meeting requirements. We would like to say that our students have met the requirements as outlined by MDE. We believe that there is some differences factually, that there are some issues that exist within the audit, but we believe that our students have met the requirements that are outlined by MDE. We reviewed board policy IGB on high school graduation. We reviewed and updated at a glance graduation section of the publication, Code of Student Conduct and Handbook, and we provided the district personnel, students, and parents to community stakeholders. We've conducted ongoing training with our principals and school counselors regarding graduation requirements and course sequencing. We provided an ICAP training to all of our counselors and principals and implemented these new individualized career plans for our students. And we have a system for tracking that through our SAM system. We've ensured that our counselors and record clerks have more oversight related to assisting with accuracy of records. What we found in analyzing our records was that records clerks may have been working on records in isolation, and they did not necessarily understand how to evaluate a transcript. So we've created a process where they work collaboratively, and we can ensure the accuracy of records. And this is a process that 12 months ago, 18 months ago, that may not have been a finished product. We were building this, and now we're in a space where we believe this can be productive. We have those processes in place. We're reviewing and revising board policy to ensure students are not allowed to participate in early release unless all graduation requirements have been met. We're conducting on-site checkpoints at each high school with the lead counselor and principal, reviewing student transcripts, cumulative folders, and permanent records, and we do that 5 times over the year. We'd like to just highlight, again, and we can't get into the weeds because of the time, but we would definitely like to bring out just one sample of why we think that there were issues, factual issues with the records. Callaway High School, in your report from, in the audit findings, it was noted that Callaway High School graduated 224 students, and of that 224 students, there were a number of those students that were not eligible for graduation. Students identified as failing to meet graduation requirements did not participate in graduation, the exercises as reported by the MDE. Only 200 eligible students graduated from Callaway, not 224. We have the documentation in the attachment F to kind of outline it and explain how we provided the screening to ensure that the right students graduated. But that is listed in the audit, and that is just simply not the case. MDE incorrectly reported the graduation of ineligible students at all 7 of the high schools. And this is just a graphic of that to look at the way we, our screening process. We have mechanisms in place to look at graduates, to screen, to make sure that students have met the graduation requirements, and students who have not met those requirements do not graduate. And so again, these are some differences in numbers, but our documentation that's outlined speaks to the fact that all of our students met the graduation requirements We'd be glad to address that with any questions later. Standard 20, big standard. We know that our teacher corps, when I first came into the space, my communication with staff is that in order for us to move this district to where it needs to go, we have to improve our teacher corps. We have to have strong teachers, and we have to support those teachers. The district has a board-approved instructional management system. One was approved in November 2016. Another was approved in July of 2017. You can see that very comprehensive plan in Exhibit G. We met with our teachers, and our teachers said to us in exit conferences, we need to be better prepared. We're not leaving because of money. We're not leaving because students are, because we have discipline issues. We're leaving because we feel that we're not, in many cases, equipped with what we need to work with the students. So what did we do? Our response to that, we worked with our board. We put a professional development department and a curriculum department in place, something that we've not had in the past 7 years, to focus on teaching and learning. We have standards-based professional development has been initiated for all instructional staff, including the limited service teachers that we have. That's a real issue. We have limited service teachers. There's a teacher shortage, and we own that. But it's our responsibility to empower those people to be successful if they're in the classroom with our children. Teacher mentors have been hired to support our new teachers. This summer alone, we trained over 100 teachers on lesson planning, differentiation, teaching students, engaging students, all of those things that you heard about in the audit that did not exist when the auditors were there. We trained staff, and we also trained teams of teachers within buildings so that they can provide the training. It can be job embedded. So these are things that we have done that are in place right now as we speak, and we're seeing the promise that exists there. We've also offered signing bonuses and incentive pay to our teachers in those core areas. The district, we're utilizing a professional development service that are offered by the MDE, and we're continuing to leverage our federal dollars to provide the job-embedded professional development and coaching. Standard 29, transportation. It's been very public, our transportation woes. We had issues with transportation. Much of what you saw in the document that you have in the audit, it existed. 12 months ago, 6 months ago, when we had an opportunity to work the corrective action plan and put things in place, we have done that, and we've seen the positive impact of that. We've completed the quarterly inspection in July of 2017, and all noted vehicles are ready for inspection by the MDE. The district purchased 44 new buses with GPS to monitor on-time arrival for the 2017-18 school year. And those buses are here, are at our site. So our fleet has been upgraded. Our drivers, we raised the pay of our drivers from $10 an hour to $14 an hour so that we could recruit and retain drivers. And it worked. We don't have a bus shortage. We don't have a driver shortage. And all of our routes are currently covered. And so we're working continuously on making sure that we have standby drivers. So if drivers are ill, we have those individuals that can back them up. The district has invested in equipment and personnel to make Standard 29 meet the compliance requirements. Standard 29 transportation program continued. We have a trainer that's on staff to assist our applicants. We may have a bus monitor that wants to be certified. We have individuals on staff to work with them. Drivers have been assigned, as I mentioned, to all 210 routes. Bus arrival time, as noted by GPS, third party, not us, by the information from GPS, is that this year we have a 95% on-time arrival rate, which is significantly better than it was last year, which is a direct indication that if given the time to correct the actions, we have what it takes to make those corrective actions and see the improvement, which is what this is all about. Standard 30, school district facilities. Again, that's another area that's been documented. We have made significant strides in the area of facilities. The district has made significant progress in correcting the citations that were cited on April 5th through the 22nd of 2016. The district received 1,541 citations. To date, 1,487 of those have been corrected, and 1,402 of those have been certified by the MDE as late as June 26. Corrective action installations, there's a list there of all of the things you all saw last year. The attention that the fire extinguishers received, we purchased and put 833 fire extinguishers in place, 28 water coolers, 6 lavatories. The list goes on and on of things that we have done, and you can see Exhibit 1 to give further clarity on that information. And also, we, in the facilities, in the CAP, 96% of all the corrective actions in the CAP from the original corrective action plan have been resolved. A limited audit included 22 schools and 58% from the full audit that included 38 schools. And we just like to note that if you look at the limited audit, there are 22 schools. The 22 schools in a limited audit generated 1,541 citations. The district has completed 1,487, and the MDE has verified through documentation that's there of a list that have been signed off on from those individuals that worked with our staff. And in the full audit, you'll see that with 38 schools, there were only 706 infractions. That in itself shows that significant work, we scaled significant work. Much was made of the fact that we did not take things that we learned in the 22 schools and scale it to all 58 schools. And this is a clear indication that we were doing that in the area of facilities. If not, there should have been far more citations. And just, we have, the district has secured professional environment. There are some things that are from a facility standpoint that you just can't do overnight. It takes time, it takes funding, it takes professional services. So the district has secured professional environmental firms for chemical container count removals. We've secured professional engineering firms to assist with determining structural material deficiencies. We've secured professional architecture firm to assist with designing the window retrofits, which was listed as something that needed to be corrected. We've proceeded with the purchase and installation of classroom laboratories, our laboratories for one specific school, which was something that was noted. We've secured 12 school boilers and pressure vessel certifications and are now awaiting MDE's approval for the verification. We've secured professional architecture firm to assess 22 school facilities in addition to MDE's findings, because we want to be proactive and make sure that we have a strategic plan for addressing those issues that exist, that might come up in the future. Standard 31 school safety plan, this is critical. This is one of our goals, and we would like to encourage you to take a walk in one of our schools to see for yourself how safe our schools are. I had a member of the legislature just recently walked up to me and said that they had an unannounced visit to Callaway High School and how orderly it was in the building. She noted, I didn't know it was a school. It was so quiet and orderly. These are the kind of testimonies that we're hearing. Maybe not the case 12 months ago or 18 months ago. But again, as I go back to my statement earlier, we know that 12 months ago is vastly different than today. And so we want you to think about that theme as you make a decision, that a lot of what's in this audit, what's the pages that have been discussed this morning and what we heard and that's out there and it's been out there for months, are things that go back 18 months and might have been in place 12 months ago, but things, again, we feel vastly different. The district continuously, we believe that we have to be proactive from a safety standpoint. We have positive behavior intervention programs to encourage nonviolent conflict resolution. We've implemented a program in conjunction with the U.S. Attorney's Office called LEAD, or Legal Enrichment and Decision Making. This encourages students to make sound decisions. We've instituted a program in collaboration with some partners, Talk About the Problem, Tools for Life, which deals with being proactive and teaches students how to make positive decisions. And of course, everyone in the space understands the move to restorative justice, and we're working on those things as well in our district. The district has repaired metal detectors. Metal detectors have been placed in all middle and high schools in the district. The district has consulted with the manufacturer and we're programming and calibrating metal detectors according to industry standard and recommendation. Walk-through metal detectors have been calibrated and are being tested every 30 days and recalibrated as needed. The district has added secondary detection. If someone walks through and there's an alarm, there's a secondary person there to check that individual. Safety officers have been trained to assist during the student transition times to minimize distractions. All school resource officers and school safety officers have attended 40 hours of professional development training, which has included protocols on walk-through metal detectors. And again, over the 7 months that we've had to actually work with this team in place, we again believe that significant progress has been made. We've ensured that all elementary schools have controlled access at the main entryway. This includes magnetic door locks, remote release, two-way intercoms, cameras for the office to monitor. Proper identification is being collected by visitors at the school entry point. The district has hired additional officers so that if we have someone that's absent in a building, an officer, we can have someone to come in and backfill so that we don't have gaps in our security. Being proactive. All school crisis response plans have been updated and included MDE requirement. And not only have they been updated, schools are training on a monthly basis, training on these crisis management plans so that staff know where the reunification points are and they understand the dynamics of that plan. There were extensive media reports attached to your findings, and we would like to note that there are some positive things taking place in our district. We clearly have good things happening. We'd just like to share just some positive news about JPS. Not one, but two of our JROTC candidates from Jim Hill High School were accepted to attend the U.S. Military Academy preparatory school. The program is a selective. Only 10% of the applicants are accepted. Another JROTC cadet was first place winner of U.S. Army National Essay Contest. And in your Exhibit K, you'll see example after example. Davis Magnet, #1 school in the state for multiple consecutive years. Just this board recognized Baker Science Teacher of being a finalist for Presidential Awards of Excellence. And again, your exhibit has example after example of positive things that are happening in our district. And in conclusion, we've demonstrated that an extreme emergency does not exist at this time in the Jackson Public School District. We say again that this district today is vastly different than it was 12 months ago. Yes, we have a ways to go, and anyone that comes in will have challenges and will have a ways to go. But we feel that we have made significant progress in the work that we've done. And we think the reason that we're so positive that we can do this, we can make the lift that's needed is because of the key partnerships that we have in this city. Just the attention that this has generated over the past few days and the people that have come out in support of this district. Kellogg Foundation, a partner that has embraced the city of Jackson Public Schools. They chose Jackson Public Schools as one of their target areas from across the country. So we believe that we can leverage the work with them to help us. The city of Jackson, our mayor, was here yesterday all day and has been here today to support this effort because of how important it is. Graduation Alliance, a partner of the MDE that's been working with us to help us with the graduation rate that is now not 68%, but 70+%. The Junior League, Operation Shoestrings, 100 Black Men of Jackson, the Council of Great City Schools, which works with urban schools all across the country, have locked hands with us to support us. United Way of the Capital Area, LaFleur's Bluff, and several others. The support and resources from these organizations are aligned with the work that we're doing to improve our schools and our student achievement. And the Jackson Public School District has gained momentum. And we ask this commission to humbly accept our request. We humbly ask that you accept our request to be given a chance to continue the work that has been done to improve the district as outlined in the State Board Corrective Action Plan. We believe that if we are able to go through this process to correct these actions while not simultaneously having to go through an investigative audit, we can accelerate the momentum and do what is needed to move our district to where we all want it to be, and most importantly, do what is best for the children of this school district. We welcome continued oversight, technical assistance with the MDE. We embrace that, but we ask that we be allowed to do that work. We have about 5 minutes left, I think, and I would like for...
Seconds.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we had our board members that wanted to speak, but I just would like to acknowledge our board members that are here and very supportive of the work that is being done. So at this time, I think that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Murray.
Presentation. Now the attorneys, the questions can be asked from the commission, from the board, to the district, as well as to the Department of Education's Office of Accreditation. So we're going to give just a minute. Yes, they're going to ask questions, and then the attorneys will have an opportunity. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Yes, and I lost my voice. Yeah. Which were, well, yes, depending on their questions, yes.
All right, do members of the board have questions from either Jackson Public Schools or from the Department of Accreditation?
Madam Chair, I have a question for clarification. And I think I have followed both presentations. And I am not clear of how we got to the point of Jackson Public is saying that they have completed most of those, corrected most of those standards, and then the department is saying still on the 24. Somewhere, there's a wide discrepancy. Somewhere that there have to be documents or someone that can tell the board whether or not these 32 standards, if it's 24, if it's 18, if it's 30. From what I hear, there's a wide discrepancy of whether or not they have been completed.
Are you correcting that, Dr. Vanderford?
Either or.
All right,
Well, I think the correct terminology for us would be addressed. Again, because we have addressed all standards, and I think the clearance comes from the department. And so for us, that's one of the concerns that we've had. We do not, and I think that this process it was a challenge for, as I said yesterday, for the department and for the district, because it requires a certain level of capacity to be able to monitor and provide technical assistance, I think, in my opinion, and to also conduct an investigative audit. So there was some follow-up. There were some cases where the department came back and looked at things and gave us some feedback, and there were other departments that did not. They came into the district, they made a finding, and that was it. We've had extensive conversation, and we've monitored who was in the district, when they were in the district, who came back for follow-up in every single standard, when they entered a building, how long they stayed. We kept those very deliberate notes to be able to determine who came back and when they came back. And so again, some of the standard, some people came back and monitored and others didn't. So I don't think that there has been the progress report, I think, at this point to determine the progress that's been made. We've worked with an organization because we wanted to know what kind of progress are we making. We were kind of new at this, and are we making progress? So we reached out to determine, to get someone to help us to determine if we're making progress. Are we putting things in place that's going to help us make the corrective action? So I don't think that that assessment has been done in all areas.
Like for Dr. Vanderford to
Please,
respond?
yeah, because it's a wide
Yeah.
discrepancy.
Okay,
between-
Dr. Vanderford.
So as I indicated in the report that I made to the board, the Office of Accreditation and other MDE program offices have conducted all follow-up visits that have been requested by the district. If the district provided the evidence that was required to clear the process standard, we cleared the standard. If they did not, the standard was not cleared, and it remains on record. The evidence that we have for both compliance and non-compliance is on file in the Office of Accreditation. So I have mounds and mounds and mounds of documentation. However, it can't be made publicly available because we would have to go through the redaction process to ensure that we didn't have any publicly identifiable information in that. But you're right. I mean, throughout the conversations, I mean, let's just use graduation, for example. There are inconsistencies. I mean, you pull up Callaway High School because that's an example that the district used in their report. MSIS says there's 245 seniors for school year 16-17 at Callaway High School. We were provided records for 224 senior records on site that day that the Office of Accreditation counted and logged. The district, in the information they've given you, they said it's only 200. Well, in one of these binders, the program, and we have it too, the graduation program for Callaway, the district says it's 200. I counted them this morning, it's 198. So, I mean, there's inconsistencies in numbers across the board. But if the standard has been cleared and they've asked us to come back and clear it, we've marked it off the list. I mean, so.
So I'm getting to the real point. So obviously those sightings have been revisited to make sure that
all standards were revisited. We had two audits. The sample audit, the audit of the sample in April of 2016. That's what the corrective action plan was developed on. All the timelines in that corrective action plan that the board approved in December of 2016 had expired prior to us closing the audit on July 31st. It maybe with the exception of one that was related to instruction for this current school year. So, that said, we were auditing, as Dr. Murray pointed out, we were implementing a corrective action plan and auditing at the same time, in addition to conducting follow-up visits. I mean, if look at the report on transportation. We went back over 10 times because it says their fleet inventory is 229. After multiple inspections, which was over 10, they cleared 177 of the buses. So that means we went back more than 10 times to clear that. And, related to deficiencies for the facilities, and the district had a slide on that, in my opinion, the data is not accurate on that because you can look at standard 30 in your binder, and anything that's in red was from the first audit, anything that's in black is from the new audit, and anything that has been cleared through July 31st has a strike through. Now, we have not been back in the district since the close of the audit. I conducted the exit conference with the superintendent on July 31st. My team nor any other MDE staff has been back in the district conducting follow-up visits since July 31st. But on the facilities, we went back as late as June to 11 schools, and only one of the 11 schools cleared at that time. So, I mean, to be honest, I don't know how to answer your question. I mean, when the commission was trying to do the he said, she said, and work that out yesterday, I said, unfortunately, I've been at this table 16 times for the commission or the board to have to consider whether or not an emergency exists. And I shared with the commission yesterday, at no point has a district ever come in and said, we agree with the findings of the MDE we determine. I mean, that's just the human nature of it.
Dr. Murray, what you have up here, you never went back to the department. The ones that you say you have cleared.
Well, and I think yesterday we kind of got at this. I think there was a mix-up in communication, okay? Because what the information, we met with the state superintendent along with other members of the staff and all of our executive team. And we talked about some process. There were some issues early on and who was calling, who was making contact. So in order to provide some structure to that, I was given the directive, or we made the decision collectively that I would communicate with Dr. Sargent, who was at the time our CAP administrator. He would communicate with the staff member with the MDE as it related to when we needed technical assistance or when someone would come back. It was communicated to him that no standards would be cleared until the audit was complete. That was the communication that was given to us, that no standards would be cleared unless the audit was complete. Whether it was the assumption or the inference that was made was that there should not be, there's no need to call anyone back because nothing is going to be cleared until the audit is complete. The audit was completed in July, on July 31st. So I received a call from Dr. Vanderford in maybe June, and the statement was, this is a courtesy call because you all have not asked anyone to come back to look at errors. And at that time, I said, well, hold up. It was my understanding that we were not to request anyone to come back because nothing would be cleared. And at that time, you know, we communicated and we made arrangements for someone to come back for transportation and for facilities. But prior to that date, it was the understanding of myself and of Dr. Sargent, who worked through this process, that nothing would be cleared. Standard 17.2, I think it was, we had been cleared, I think, in the initial audit, and we wanted to have someone come back to look at it because we felt like there had been some progress. And we met, we had conversation, and again, the understanding that we had was that unless nothing would be cleared until the audit was complete, because they had come back and things were not clear, and so it was necessary to complete the audit. And so again, I think that may have been the miscommunication that occurred throughout that process.
Done, Madam Chair, but I still don't know whether these standards have been cleared or not. I still don't understand whether they're clear or not.
Dr. Kelly has a question.
I have several. I'll ask them. I'll start with a very basic one. There appeared to be a discrepancy between our department here and you, Dr. Murray, in terms of the number of days that the school district had to respond to the audit. Dr. Vanderford used 30 days. You're saying it was 7 days.
30 days for a limited audit. For the investigative audit, my reference was to the investigative audit that we received. Yes, sir.
Okay, so there is no discrepancy there then. One couple of other questions. There was reference made in Dr. Vanderford's report about teachers being threatened to pass students. Would you respond to that, please?
Yes, sir. That is not true. And Mrs. If I can reference a conversation that we had in the exit conference, it was noted in the exit conference that was going to appear in the report, and we have, there were multiple people in the conference, that would appear in the report because calls had been received across the state about that occurring. And so it would appear because, and again, that was brought out by the department. I mean, it was noted that this will appear in the report because we're getting calls from around the state of this happening. We are not. I can categorically say I was a principal at 3 different buildings at every level. That is a no-no. We don't do that. And so those individuals under my leadership know that we don't do that. We don't encourage teachers. That is against the law. Encourage teachers to change grades. That's not something that we do. We don't pressure teachers to change grades. And so, again, I don't know where the report came from, but I do know that in the exit conference, and there were other staff present, MDE staff and our staff, and it was noted that this would appear in the report that because again, the statement was, this is occurring around the state and we're getting calls. And so, again, that was my only knowledge of that. Nothing has been reported to me by a teacher. Nothing has been reported from anyone under my supervision by a teacher saying that they've been pressured, and they will. Our teachers will reach out and they will say that, and to my knowledge, that has not occurred. And I would definitely love to investigate that because that is not something that we condone or that we encourage.
Dr. Vanderford, would you respond to that?
So going back to the question that you had about the 30 days, I did in my talking points address the 30 days, but that was for the audit report. And then the 30 days, the accreditation audit procedures, you do not require that if a determination is being made for an extreme state of emergency, that 30 days is required. I delivered the report to the district on August the 31st at 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning. So that's when the district received the report. And yesterday and today, the district has expressed concerns about the amount of time that they've had to respond, but not until 10:39 on Tuesday morning, I received a fax from the district requesting additional time to respond. So that response, in my opinion, came at a very late hour. It should have come on August the 31st. However, the meeting had been set with the commission. I didn't have the authority to address that, and I responded to the commission as the executive secretary, stating that I did not have such authority, but no motion was made before the commission yesterday either to provide additional time to respond. No official motion that the commission would have had to act on yesterday.
Oh, if we were to go back to the first sampling audit, the limited number of schools that were involved, and follow that timeline to the time that the investigative audit was done, how many months is that?
Approximately 18.
18 months that the district had to respond.
Yes, sir. And that was the point I was making about notice and opportunity in my talking points. Because we've made the district along the way aware of the concerns as they've been noted. And some examples that I gave to the commission yesterday was with the special education weekly reports that they gave. All of our facility reports were provided to the district upon completion of the reports. So everything that you have behind Standard 30 that was compiled for the district and you in the report on August the 31st had been provided to the district, since April, May, and June of 2016.
Madam Chairman, can I
Sure.
complete my line?
Pardon me, Dr. Kelly, do you want Dr. Vanderford to respond to the issue about teachers and grades, or you want to move on?
Yes, that was the second question.
So, I did address it with the district. At the exit conference, I addressed the immunization concerns because we were getting calls from the parents, and then when a physician and a nurse from UMC contacted us, so I, transparent, made the district aware that these were reports that we were getting, and for the sake of transparency, said these are going to, the notice of these complaints, and these teachers, not in this district, but across the state. When district employees have issues and they report them, they have fear of retaliation. That's their concern, and so we receive the reports. We have them.
Dr. Murray, there was a reference made to electronic devices being used in the testing area during testing. Can you tell us why that was being done?
Yes, sir. We definitely we have test security plans that are clear. We train our people, and we would like to know the same thing. I spoke just this morning with our district test coordinator, and the district coordinator, the process, the way I understand it, if there is an infraction within a building, then it is to be reported to the district test coordinator as a violation. That did not happen, and so in the report, we're seeing it at the same time that you're seeing it, because if it's reported to us, we're going to address it. Well, we were told yesterday that it was an ongoing investigation, which is again, something that we heard for the first time yesterday. But again, if there's an infraction that happens, the process, as I understand it, is that if it happens in a building, then the department makes a contact to the district coordinator, and then we have a process by which we investigate. That did not happen. That did not happen. Cell phones going off, individuals prohibiting individuals from going into to rooms, those kinds of things was in the report. And so we had a very long conversation with our test coordinator, and that information simply, we cannot document that any of that was reported, but it did appear in the report. And I'd just like to note there was a specific example of a school where that a person was prohibited from going into a testing site. What happened was the monitor from MDE was taking pictures, which is not something, those of you that are former administrators at this table would know that you wouldn't allow that in a building, regardless of who the person is. And so the policy clearly says that the only individuals that can have an electronic device are the test coordinator and instruct someone in technology. No one else. That's MDE's policy. And so the principal, of course, had concerns about that and addressed those concerns at that time.
Dr. Vandenberg, would you respond, please?
Yes, sir. This was a very lengthy conversation at the commission meeting yesterday as well, and Mr. Drain addressed that. But when, as Dr. Murray mentioned, they were aware every time that MDE was in the district. So each time that we were on site for an audit, and we're talking specifically about test security here. So each time, and our auditors went to one or more of the schools multiple times, someone from the school notified the district office that we were there. So central office personnel came to the school and was present while MDE was there. And so when Mr. Drain provided his debriefing at the school, there was central office staff there present to hear the concerns as part of the debriefing. And it was noted yesterday that, the district office wasn't aware of it, but one of the principals sent an email to the district test coordinator, which later sent the email to MDE, which was during statewide testing going on. So, and we have that correspondence as evidence that the district was made aware of these issues prior to the release of the August the 31st report.
Madam Chair, I have one last question,
go ahead.
if I could, please. There was reference made to federal funds that were in the budget that have not been spent at the time of the investigative audit. There's about 15 days left in this fiscal year. Where are those funds?
Those funds, it's about $1.8 million actually. That it's the total funds are $1,897,253. The balance of that remaining is about $751,614. We've obligated $535,000 from Title II. The balance is $83,600 to date. So those funds, again, this was brought up on yesterday, but again, the date is September 30th. And so we have $16 million in title funds. And today we've spent we have about $751,000, and the plan is in place, and these funds will be obligated by the required and spent by December as required.
Madam Chair, that concludes my question.
If there are no other questions, then we will hear from the closing from the legal teams.
We'll begin with the district. You will have 10 minutes, and I will give you a 2-minute warning.
Thank Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Keith, and I'm the attorney that's giving the closing statement for the district in this regard. And first of all, I just want to tell you that we certainly appreciate and respect MDE's effort to identify issues that the district needs to address in order to become a better district. There's no question about that. We do disagree with MDE's conclusion and the Commission on Accreditation that an extreme emergency exists, and some of that you've already heard. But let me, before I get into some prepared statements, let me address Mr. McClellan's question. You ask probably the most crucial question that has occurred in these last 2 days, and that is, where are we today? And there's a dispute as to where we are today. This man on my right has said we're not the same district we were a year ago or even 6 months ago. MDE's data, a lot of their findings did happen a long time ago, a year ago, 18 months ago, and it started. And a lot of that has been addressed. So here's what I suggest, because this is too important of a decision for us to make on a whim or a difference of where are we or where are we not. Why don't we determine where we are? Why doesn't this board tell MDE to go back to JPS to see which one of these standards they can clear? There's the proof in the pudding. Before you make the vote to take over, I think that is just the simplest thing that we could do to make sure we don't make a major mistake. And I haven't even discussed this issue with this superintendent here, and the board, but I can assure you they're willing to stand by that because they know how much work they have put into it. I just don't think you should make a decision based on 18-month-old or 12-month-old or even 6-month-old data. This man has only been in office effectively since the 1st of January, and you saw the major changes that have taken place, one of which was the organizational restructure. I just think it's too important. Dr. Vanderford admitted they have not gone back in, and there's a dispute over whether we asked for them to come back in or not. Folks, that's petty. We need to get past that and say, okay, we didn't maybe ask you to come back in, but at the same time, you were saying the audit wasn't complete. So let's just get beyond that. And Mr. McClellan, I just think that the answer to your question needs to come from the MDE team to go back to the district, and let's just see what's been cleared. And then we can report back to the board. And then if you want to take this district over, you obviously have that option. This is too important of a decision to leave it based upon who said what, he said this, and so on. Mr. Kelly, you asked some pretty good questions about, really good questions about some of these issues that you heard. But one of the things I think you got the response from Dr. Vanderford were these reports coming from around the state. How in the world do we verify those reports? Those of you in education know we get reports all the time from people who are disgruntled for whatever reason. We can't address hearsay. We really can't. Now, this gentleman knows good and well we certainly do not allow that. And if someone believes they're being pressured, there is a process to address that. This 30-day issue, I want to mention that. If you look at the procedures that this board adopted for hearing these matters, under step 2 of the process, MDE is given 30 calendar days to complete its report. No question. Their audit finished on July 31st. And I would venture to say that they picked a date to complete that audit because they knew that they had 30 days from that date to complete their report, and they did it. They completed it on the 30th day. They took their 30 days in step 2. Interestingly, if you look at the procedures, and it's in your materials, at that point, that's where MDE says these procedures no longer apply since we're going for an emergency takeover. I dare you to show me in your procedures where there's an exception to the 30-day requirement allowed this gentleman because of a takeover. It's not in there. It is not in your procedures. Your procedures go on to say JPS has 30 days to refute the allegations, and if we don't refute them within 30 days, guess what? They're accepted. But yet we were given 9 school days. It says 30 school days. You know what the deadline for 30 school days was? October 13th. Yet we were here yesterday after 9 school days of having to analyze a 30 or a 700 and some odd page report and come up with our challenges to all of those allegations in there. And we could, and contrary to what Dr. Vanderford just said, we could have refuted these at any time. How do you refute something when a report's preliminary? Until that audit report was finalized, we'd be wasting our time and the State Department's time. So we didn't have a chance. And for the MDE to take the position that because this is an extreme emergency, we don't get the chance to refute the allegations. That's all we've asked for from the beginning. Dr. Vanderford said, well, MDE didn't get a letter until Tuesday morning asking for a delay. Well, you know, we were working hard to try to meet the deadline for tomorrow. It became obvious on Tuesday morning we needed more time. We wrote a letter over here. Dr. Vanderford writes back and says, I don't have the authority to give you an extension. She said, well, we didn't make a formal request yesterday. The first words out of his mouth and my mouth yesterday to the commission was, we didn't get 30 days. And I even said to him, you can't make a decision without going through the documents that we submitted. The commission yesterday went into executive session and not a one of them took their materials that we had presented to them to review. So they did not look at our evidence. So Mr. Kelly, what's happened in this process is the commission did look at the MDE's report. They admitted they had 13 days after August 31st to review MDE's report, and they did. And yesterday, they did not, other than just thumbing through them during the process of the arguments, did they look at our information. Didn't even consider it in executive session. That is an arbitrary decision. It is not fair to this school district. This is too important of a decision to not give this district the opportunity to address these issues. That's all we're asking for, fairness, to be heard. We have not been heard. And Mr. Kelly, we have not been heard in this process, I promise you, because nobody has looked at our exhibits. You guys have not had a chance to look at them today. I know you haven't, because we just didn't have time to get them to you. Now, that's why I think if we want to be fair to JPS and the students in this district, and we all know taking over a district is traumatic to the community, it's traumatic to the students. And we don't need to make a mistake here. This is the second largest school district in the state. Sure, there's been past mistakes, but I can tell you in my 35 years of dealing with school districts, I've never seen a district get more aggressive at trying to address these accreditation issues than this district has done over the last several months since this man has been in office. The new team, the mayor and his effort. How many times have you had the mayor of Jackson sit here for 2 days worth of hearings in support of this school district? And he's got appointment power of 3 more
minutes.
Board members. How much? 2 minutes, okay. To put on this board people who are invested in this city. I will give MDE credit here. You have, I think, sent a wake-up call to JPS, and this man has responded. His leadership team has responded. He has done more in 6 or 7 months than any other administrator or superintendent, and I don't know, in years of working with that district. So let's don't make the mistake of jumping the gun. And Mr. McClellan, I think we need to take your suggestion and let's determine where we are. And it is, and besides, we can even do that within the next couple of weeks, even considering the fact that if we had been given our 30 days, we'd have an October 13th deadline. This is not going to be an inordinate delay. Here's what's interesting in this extreme emergency. The issues that would have declared the extreme emergency, the busing, the safety, the security, all of that all happened almost a year ago. It's been corrected. So now what is this extreme emergency? Why weren't we taken over a year ago? Those things that were in place then, sure. I don't think we'd be here if you had brought us before you a year ago. Today, those conditions don't exist, and that's all we're asking is that you take a look, make sure you know where we are, and you don't have to accept this takeover recommendation. You could appoint someone to work with this gentleman and give you feedback, and if you didn't like the decisions they were making, you know the statute gives you the right to overturn any decision the board or the superintendent makes, even without a takeover, because you assign somebody there to work with them. You can do that. You don't have to do this. You can assign somebody there to make this thing work. So let's do it right. let's make sure that we're fair to JPS and the students in that district.
Time is allotted,
And
has passed, I'm sorry.
give this man a chance to make the improvements. Thank you very much.
Keith? Okay, we're ready.
Good afternoon, Board. Just for transparency's sake, I want to bring something to the Board's attention since there's been this argument and dispute about the 30 days. This morning, the district attempted to seek a motion for a temporary restraining order. The court, the Hinds County Chancery Court, denied that temporary restraining order based on that same argument about insufficient time. So I just want to make you aware of that.
I'm going to object that it's not what the judge ruled. The judge ruled he did not have jurisdiction to rule that. That is a mistake of what the judge said.
Yesterday, the Commission on School Accreditation listened to both sides, and they asked questions, and they determined that an extreme emergency situation exists that jeopardizes this, that's based on the safety, security, and educational interest of the students. Think about your vision. Students in JPS are being systematically denied a quality education. JPS leaders have for far too long ignored the problems, and they are demonstrating repeated negligence by failing to fix them. The students are being denied an opportunity to achieve the success that you envision. Winston Churchill said, "Criticism may not be agreeable, but it's necessary. It fulfills the function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things." The audit report findings are meant to be constructive, but to illustrate that there is an unhealthy state of affairs in the Jackson Public School District. As Dr. Vanderford mentioned, following a limited audit, the Commission downgraded the accreditation status to probation and gave the district a chance to fix the problems. They met repeatedly with the district, and even through a CAP, through technical assistance, through follow-up visits, and the full investigative audit, which both parties endured, the district is worse off in the sense that they are now in violation of 24 standards. And I want to emphasize that the MDE went in as recently as July and in April and evaluated of this year, of 2017, and evaluated the standards, the same standards. There were some things that were cleared, but they are still in violation of 24 of the 32 process standards. The district is in violation of 75%. They're in violation of 7 of the 8 most serious areas, not standards, areas. They're in violation of state law, state board policy, and federal law. Let's just discuss some of them. The most important, about education. It's about instruction. Instruction's not taking place in these classrooms. They're not following guidelines that the board approved, starting as early childhood classes. Teachers aren't following lesson plans. Teachers have no control of the class. There's no tiered intervention. There are substitutes in classrooms. There's uncertified personnel. There's governance issues. Ineligible students are graduating. There are special ed issues. And may I remind you, 5 years ago, we were in the district dealing with special ed issues. We gave them another chance. And here we are, 5 years later, facing the same problems again. There are safety issues. They've fixed some things. We'll give them that. But it's a lot easier to fix a window and a door. It takes time. We get that. But they haven't focused on education. They haven't focused on the instruction. And that brings you to the academic performance. Statistics that have been provided show that from 2012 to 2015, they were a D. In 2016, they were an F. Their proficiency across the board, ELA, math, U.S. history, science, they've all dropped. There's conversations around this community about it being the second largest district in the state, and that it's an urban district. I'm going to paint a picture for you of another district in another state. It's the fourth largest urban district in the nation, and it's a majority-minority district. They have 392 schools, 345,000 students, and over 56 different languages are spoken. 71%, over 71% of the students receive free and reduced lunches. Not one of those schools is an F school. Almost 40% are A's. That's Miami-Dade County, and our accountability system is modeled off of Florida's. This just goes to show what effective leadership, appropriate instruction, and a safe school climate, a positive school climate, can do. It's possible for JPS. Of paramount importance is to have a functioning school that's serving the students. The work you do, that MDE does, that the districts are supposed to do, is based on this. That every child in Mississippi deserves the opportunity to use their gifts as far as it will let them. When those opportunities are being denied, it's our duty to act. There's a lot of talk about all of these state takeovers, that there have been 19. Historically, the model did what it was supposed to do. A conservator was put in place to bring the district back into compliance with policy and law. But this year, the statute changed. The model is now based on academic achievement. An interim superintendent is going to be put in place. It's an instructional leader. And before the district can be returned to local control, they have to be successful for a minimum of 5 years. This is not about taking over a district now. It's about transforming a district. In all previous 19 conservatorships, the commission, the State Board of Education, and the governor have stepped in for far less than what JPS is facing. Law requires the board to consider if an extreme emergency exists that jeopardizes the safety, security, or educational interests of the students in the district. The safety, the security, and the educational interests. You only need one. You have all three. Serious violation or violations of standards, federal law, or state law. You only need one. You have all of them. It's now in your hands to think about protecting these students and protecting their education. Almost 27,000 children are enrolled in this district. Nelson Mandela said, "Education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. Failure to act will have a disastrous impact on the education and lives of the students in the Jackson Public School District."
I have 2 minutes left if you'd like to say anything else.
I'm good.
All right,
Thank you,
thank
Board.
you, thank you. It is, I'm sorry?
I take her 2 minutes.
I don't think so.
No, it can't be out there.
Oh, you need to go. Well, we're gonna, at that,
I'll laugh. One of these days you're going to get old too.
thank goodness we're not as old as you. At this point, this concludes all of our discussion regarding the Jackson Public School issue. It is 12:30. I think it's a good time to break for lunch, and then we'll come back and finish our discussion and proceed with rest of the board meeting. So let's break and let's come back at 1:30.